Hi, I'm Joan Goodchild, and welcome to SC Media's continued coverage of 2023's Women in IT Security. I'm joined today by Christina Liaghati. She is AI Strategy Execution and Operations Manager with the AI and Autonomy Innovation Center at MITRE. Liaghati is one of 20 honorees that we're shining a spotlight on in the coming day for their contributions to the larger IT and cybersecurity community. So thank you for joining us, Christina.
Thank you, Joan. It's a pleasure and an honor.
So first, tell us about your background. What drove you to pursue this as a career? When did you first realize that you had a passion for the work of cybersecurity?
Amazing. So I actually came up in the physics and kind of hard sciences side of the world, and then got my PhD in engineering, right? So started getting more and more involved in some of these hands-on systems, and actually started working with our internal research and development across decision sciences inside of MITRE about 5 or 6 years ago. And that was really where the whole AI security, cybersecurity focus of my career was born. And I have been fully devoted to it. This has become my life basically ever since then, and largely because we see the potential impact of these AI-enabled systems in society and the vulnerabilities and the risks that come along with that. So we're really excited to be able to work at this intersection of the broader industry, government, academic community to help folks figure out how they can secure and assure their AI-enabled systems as folks are adapting their mindset, right, from that traditional cyber worldview to okay, what do we do as we're incorporating these cool new toys?
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's dig into that a little bit more. I mean, we've been talking about AI for a few years now, but it really seems to have caught fire in the last year.
Yeah.
And as the AI strategy execution and operations manager, tell us about, the projects that you've been part of in the past year. What are you trying to achieve with those? What kind of impact have you seen? I'll really open it up to you to tell us more about your work.
Amazing. Thank you. So I lead MITRE ATLAS, which is our largest community collaboration on all things AI security and assurance. And when I say assurance, security is really where we've started all of this, because we've got a major taproot of expertise inside of MITRE in the AI security space, from red teaming government systems that really AI-enabled components of the government systems for the last 10 years, right? So we've seen this world evolve over the last 10 years or so, but really, especially the energy just in the last year, as folks are really starting to tangibly see what the AI-enabled elements of their systems could do for them, and start to see what they could actually, implement in the near future, instead of it just being a ethereal research project anymore, has been a really big game changer in a lot of that conversation with the community, which we've absolutely loved, because it's now given us the opportunity to jump in with the 50 years of AI expertise that MITRE has, and honestly the 10 years of AI security and red teaming expertise, to really help folks walk through that thought process, really assess their risk, start to prioritize mitigations, and really get some tangible results out of it. Both in the government and in industry context. We've been really enjoying the number of industry groups that have spun up on this speed recently, or on this topic recently, and the number of like startups, right, that have successfully launched in the last year and a half, 2 years since we first created Atlas, has just been so encouraging, because it means that folks are actually talking about and understanding that this is a problem, and that we need to work together to actually solve and mitigate some of the issues that we're seeing here. So AI security is my world now. Atlas itself is a matrix that is designed after the MITRE ATT&CK matrix, right? So we've really concretely described those tangible tactics and techniques that an adversary can use to take advantage of our AI-enabled components. And that's been the centerpiece for a lot of those cross-industry conversations that we've been able to really grow and lead in the last 2 or 3 years, especially as more folks are coming up to speed on it. So Atlas is where I'm at. And that's a really exciting spot as we're continuing to grow the international collaboration from there.
Great. So, I mean, we're glad to have you kind of helming some of the efforts around AI and security. As you know, there's a lot of concern around it too. Again, since it sort of caught fire in the last year, a lot of discussions too about implications.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest challenge that you're trying to solve for in this space?
Yeah, a lot of it really is helping organizations figure out what they can and should be doing here, right? Like, even just starting with the basic question of whose problem is it, right? Like, does this live in the existing CISO pipeline? Is this in the AI development portion of the life cycle? Where do you actually solve some of these problems? Especially when we're talking to and building off of things that the cybersecurity community has done and been successful in over the last 10, 20 years, right? Like that's why we're building a lot of these tools in those very familiar contexts of attack or Caldera, right? We just launched Arsenal, a Atlas tactic and technique based plugin into that same threat emulation environment that some of the cyber community already knows and loves, right? But it's very challenging to get folks to understand, all right, this is the problem. Now whose job in the organization is it to really deal with it? And in a lot of ways, we're helping folks see that this isn't just something that you can deal with in one shop, right? This isn't even necessarily something that one part of the organization can solve, because many of these vulnerabilities come up and can really only be mitigated from across the entire life cycle, right? Like you need to do iterative testing regardless, like of how secure it is when it goes out. We're seeing new threats evolve in the field or ways that AI can fail on a regular basis after a system's already been deployed, right? So from the very beginning of the life cycle in the AI development, gathering the data, making the informed risk decisions as you're designing it, all the way to deployment and the consistent verification, validation, ongoing testing that you need to do once a system's out in the wild. So it's been, I think that's the biggest challenge, is really helping folks see that it's a tangible problem that can't live in one portion of the org. A lot of the org needs to come up to speed on what the risks looks like and what they can do to start mitigating it.
That's great. Be interesting to see how things play out, as you go along in
Right.
your work and your research too. Let's broaden out a little bit and talk more about you and your career too. I mean, what is your leadership style? How do you like to set an example? What's your philosophy on being a leader?
Oh gosh. I would say passion is really the biggest thing that I radiate at most of the time. I mean, y'all can see I'm a very smiling, generally happy, very energetic type of person. And that's really how I drive most of my connections with my teams, right? It's really driving into the heart of, all right, what are we focused on doing? How do we, actually execute against that as a team, and let that passion and excitement for the potential impact of what we're working on drive us. And that's honestly been useful, I think, for me in my collaborations across the community, because that's largely what I'm trying to do, is bring people together to excitedly work together on a problem that we think is going to impact more than just our individual organization or part of the organization. And there's so much potential in that space that it really excites me, and I hope to continue propagating that passion and excitement for AI security and a lot of the potential impacts for what we're working on together. So hopefully that comes across as you're talking to me now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, as part of our coverage, we're obviously highlighting very accomplished women in this space. And it hasn't often come easy for a lot of people, especially many of the honorees who have reached very high levels of success in cybersecurity. What types of biases or preconceptions have you personally experienced as a woman researching and working in this domain? And, how have you navigated that or learned from those experiences? Any takeaways for our viewers?
Yeah, the strong suit I just mentioned, being very passionate and excited. I smile a lot, right? In some environments, that has actually been a little bit of a hindrance or a weakness that others, might have keyed in on, and it's been somewhat challenging to balance the two of those, right? Like I see it today as a strength, and I've really done everything I could to harness it for the benefit of my team and my mission. But at the same time, that has been viewed on occasion as, whenever I jump on a call, right? Like it's been in a specific circumstance here, right? It's not been uncommon, especially before I got my PhD, for folks to jump on a call with me and see a young, happy female, right, that was very helpful and willing to take taskers. And they would assume that, say, I was administrative staff, or they would assume that, I was a more junior person on the team that would just take whatever tasks were sent my way, kind of thing, when I would in reality be more of a leader in the group, right? And without folks necessarily having that introduction or necessarily realizing that ahead of time, just the assumptions they would make coming into a meeting or coming into a virtual call, that I wasn't necessarily one of the leaders that was driving the conversation, and that would reflect on the rest of the engagement, right? Because it would meant that the same kind of comments that you hear from a lot of women coming up in the STEM world of anything that I would say that, a guy would repeat later, it wouldn't necessarily occur to everyone, oh, wait, Christina said that first 5 minutes ago, kind of thing, right? Like, in those few missteps have been a bit of a challenge to work through over the years, but I've been very deliberate and really had the opportunity, because I'm in this major leadership role for our organization and for this mission space, both across sponsors and in kind of growing the responsibilities of my team. I've had the opportunity to help them figure out how to address that a little bit, right? And in a lot of ways, even just me introducing my amazing female colleagues on a call as soon as we jump on, and help folks really recognize the responsibility that they carry and what their capabilities are, helps prevent some of those kind of immediate misunderstandings that I don't want to impact anyone after me in this field.
That's great, because that was going to be my next question too. I mean, are there other ways that you seek on a daily or weekly, regular basis in your work to try to empower other women, whether they're the women that you're working with or in your space, or those that might look to you as a mentor, or other professionals that you interact with on a regular basis? How are you empowering women to be able to continue to take leadership roles themselves in this area?
One of the major things that drives me is watching some of the incredible women growing around me continue to take on more and successfully, break through some of the biases or some of the challenges that I see facing our field right now. I mean, cybersecurity in general, right, is a very male dominant field, but even that smaller intersection of AI and cyber, or really this little AI security world, it's even more male dominant, and it's quite challenging to find amazing, like, powerhouse women allies in this space. But the few that I have found, I am clinging on to for dear life, and we love it. I mean, I think that's what's been so exciting when we do find other women that we admire, that we really get a lot of inspiration and excitement from. We're continuing to collaborate together more with each other as much as we can. I mean, like, there's a few different folks, both in industry organizations and in government organizations, that I've found that have been really incredible partners that encourage me to continue, like, anytime I am discouraged by, an interaction where I'm like, okay, that was clearly biased and I don't really feel good about that, particular interaction or outcome. But I also see, like, the counterbalance here, right? I'm definitely an optimist, glass half full kind of person. And I've seen these women excel and take on more and more responsibilities and be leaders in this space. And that is what encourages me, that we actually have some potential to shape and solve some of those problems longer term. So between the, working with my team to help really encourage them and introduce and empower them as much as possible, so they're not having to deal with, some of those immediate biases that might come up in conversation, as well as working with some really incredible external women to both show the field what the potential powerhouse stage looks like, right? We're engaging at a bunch of conferences and really helping to encourage more women, even just in the college and high school age ranges, that, hey, you can be a leader in this space. Here are some demonstrated women examples of what it looks like to be a leader here. And it's definitely something that you can succeed at. You're capable of doing and being a leader here. And it's been fun and exciting to see the space evolve, because even just in the last year, I've seen a significant temperature difference in the conversations, the number of women we've had involved. And it gives me hope that we're going to be able to balance it out a little bit more over the years.
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned, women just getting into the space. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that too. It's kind of a different place than being a woman and working in the space and kind of dealing with some of the preconceived notions that you might deal with. But at the same time, there's definitely a skills gap. And as you said, it's a male dominated field. So, what about young women who are considering careers in this field, or even not necessarily super young women, people who are looking at cybersecurity as part of a career change? What kind of conversations can we have? What kind of initiatives have you taken part in to try to inspire more people that are women to get into the field of cybersecurity in the first place?
Yeah, wholeheartedly. It's been exciting to work on some of those resources with the other powerhouse women that I was mentioning earlier, right? There's been quite a few different areas that we've been pointing folks to as we engage with them in these external contexts. Atlas is one of those, right? We've got a machine learning 101 or adversarial machine learning 101 page on the website that we've been pointing folks to, just that are starting to dip their toe into the AI security problem space, right? Like that's maybe cybersecurity folks that are just coming up to speed on some of these things. Same thing of the even like how even earlier than that, right? Like I'm not in the cyberspace, I'm not in the AI space at all. How do I get involved in this conversation, right? I usually help folks or tell them that it's much more effective to jump into a little bit more of the actual tangible problems, right? So maybe read through a few Atlas case studies, understand some of the tangible examples of what's actually happening in the wild here. Because if you start with academic papers, like there are thousands of papers per year being published right now just in AI security and adversarial machine learning, right? I wouldn't worry about that. There are a few really good podcasts in the community. We've got an Atlas Slack space for folks to ask questions and really jump into the conversations about, all right, what's actually happening in the AI security and cyberspace as folks are coming up to speed on both sides of those. So, I mean, like there, I'd say there's more interactive, community-based or lightweight solutions that I usually point people to encourage them to get involved. And, if they decide this is a field for me, this is something I'm really interested in, I want to come up to speed more on adversarial machine learning or machine learning in general, right? Or the cyberspace, a lot of the academic institutions actually have some really good YouTube series, right? So the MIT ML 101 course, or, some of the different easy ways to just come up to speed even at a more crunchy technical level on some of these topics has been really useful to point folks to on the cases where they really want to dive in and get really technical with it.
That's great. When you were first getting into your career, was there anyone that you looked to as an inspiration, or anyone you consider a pioneer either in cybersecurity or in AI or both, or that you would point to as someone who inspired you over the years?
Gosh, well, it's hard to talk about, especially women in cyber, without thinking of Jen Easterly, right? Like the head of CISA as one of the most amazing, inspirational, and again, kind of passionate, excited women that I look at and I'm like, all right, we can do this. We can definitely do this. I've got some really cool role models ahead in the future there. And then on honestly, some of the other sides of just becoming more of a people leader and becoming inspired to try and take on more responsibility, help others where I could, that really has led me into this opportunity space. I'll mention Kim Shepard, actually, who was one of my very first department managers as I joined MITRE. I first started out at Raytheon early in my career. And then when I came to MITRE about 7 years ago, Kim Shepard was my very first department manager. She managed a group of about 40 people, and now she manages our MITRE Huntsville site. Down in Huntsville, Alabama, where I grew up and went to college and first started with MITRE. And she inspired me to really want to become more of a people leader. And, in that same department was when I became a frontline manager and, started becoming more of an even like, managerial leader person. And that's definitely been a major passion for me, to be able to impact the lives of, every person that is in my organization. Has been very exciting. And it's, I think, fed a lot of the potential that has led me now to impacting the 200 people in our AI and Autonomy Innovation Center. I mean, this organization didn't exist 3 years ago. I helped our new director, who started it at the time, build it up to that 200 powerhouse inside of MITRE that it is now, and getting to impact those people's lives on a daily basis, right? Like we're very involved in finding them work, impactful work that really forwards really drives us toward that overarching mission, right? MITRE's goals in helping improve everyone, both like on the industry side and the government side, right? Like solving problems for a safer world is our overarching slogan, right? You can think about how many ways that AI can be used in those environments. And that's what drives us, and getting to help people as we're getting closer and closer to that mission space has been amazing for me. And I learned all of that from Kim, just being able to watch her work and be a people leader. I have really used a lot of that inspiration over the last 7 years as I've built up my own role and potential to impact people's lives in that same way.
All right. Well, that's great. And we will leave it right there. Christina Liaghati, we really appreciate you spending some time with us today and talking a little bit about your experience and your career.
Thank you so much, Joan. It was great to meet you, and I appreciate everyone listening in.
Great. And thanks to you for watching. For now, I'm Joan Goodchild on behalf of SC Magazine.